Welcome back to No Fear Public Speaking. I'm Abraham Lavoie, your instructor, and I'm glad you've joined me again for this session. Now, this is the part where we start our segment on preparation. Remember, there are 3 P's to No Fear Public Speaking: perspective, which we talked about in the last session, preparation, and then presentation. So here's where we begin preparation, and this is going to go over several sessions, so stay tuned for a lot of talk about preparation. First of all, preparation time for preparing your talk. Write this down because this is very important. The preparation time for your talk should be at least 4 times the length of your talk. So if you're giving a 30-minute talk, you should allocate at the very least 2 hours to prepare your talk. Now, what are you going to do in this 2 hours? Well, first of all, you're going to take 2 times the length of your talk for research, composing, and arranging notes. Now, this is probably assuming that you know your subject matter pretty well. Otherwise, it could go a lot longer than this. I say at least 4 times the length of your talk. So 2 times the length of your talk. So again, if you're giving a 30-minute talk, you should spend at least an hour in research, composing, and arranging your notes. And then the other 2 times the length of your talk, or the other hour, should be reserved for rehearsing it 2 full times. And we'll talk in a subsequent session about the techniques and how to rehearse your talk for maximum impact before you give it. So again, 4 times at the very least. And sometimes if your subject matter is foreign to you, or if there's a lot of research necessary, then it may take many times longer than this. But at the very least, 4 times the length of your talk, twice the length of your talk for composing your notes, twice the length of your talk for rehearsing it through twice fully. So let's start with composing your talk. And here's just a few high-level things that we're going to talk about before we get into the nuts and bolts of actually creating your notes. First of all, shorter is better. Now, if you're given a 30-minute time slot to give a talk, you should do your best to prepare notes and prepare facts and prepare your outlines so that you're going to give 30 minutes worth of material. But shorter is always better. Think about it. If you're sitting in an audience listening to a talk, you would always rather be pleasantly surprised that they finished a little bit early than to constantly be glancing at your watch because they went 5, 10, 15 minutes over. So you always want to prepare your talk so that it lasts the length of time that you've been given, but not any more, and perhaps a little bit less. And there are a lot of things that you can do if you end a little bit early, other than just say, well, that's all I've got, which could create another fear for you if you think you're going to end early and then you don't know what to do. You can, for example, ask the audience if they have any questions. Perhaps you conveyed some new ideas or information that they had questions about, and that gives you another vote of confidence in your audience's mind if they can ask a question and then you can answer it easily from your knowledge that you have about that subject. That wins you additional points in your success as a public speaker. You can also ask leading questions of the audience that could elicit discussion. Ask them a question. Think about what this means for them. And then they can answer, and then you can answer, and it becomes a dialogue, which again leaves the audience with a really good taste in their mouth after having been invited into the conversation. And finally, you could just give the audience a break. I know from being a part of multiple day seminars where there was speaker after speaker after speaker, there was nothing that I enjoyed more than when a speaker finished a little bit early and said, hey, why don't you stand up and stretch, go take a break, get some coffee. Wow, they got my vote for being a good public speaker, not trying to stretch it out, but giving me a little bit of a break. So first of all, when you compose your talk, shorter is better. Prepare for the allotted time, but don't prepare over, and make sure that you're watching your time so that if you finish right at the end, you're not going over. Now, the other thing you should do when preparing your talk is know your audience. This is critical because in the first few moments of your talk, if you can demonstrate to your audience that you know who you're talking to, you've thought enough about this, that you learned a little bit of something about them, it will put you miles ahead in being at ease and them being at ease with you, and then being able to easily and without fear communicate with them. I recently spoke in Fayetteville, North Carolina on Veterans Day. Now, this is a very simple example of figuring out a way to know your audience. Fayetteville, North Carolina is home to one of the largest, if not the largest, United States Army base in the United States and even perhaps in the world. And it was Veterans Day. So for me to know a little something about and recognize at the very beginning of my talk, hey, I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it's Veterans Day, it went light years for engaging and endearing me to the audience so that I had them on my side. So on my way to fly there, I flew through Atlanta, and in the Atlanta airport, on any given day, you can see any number of military people. And so I happened to be at the drinking fountain, and there was another guy there who was in his Army uniform. And so I just made some conversation with him. I said, hey, where are you headed? And he said, I'm headed home to Maryland. And I said, where are you coming from? And he said, well, I can't tell you that, but it's somewhere over in the Middle East. I've been gone a long time. I'm just on my way home to see my wife and young daughter. And so the next day, when I got up in front of this audience on Veterans Day in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where Fort Bragg is one of the largest military bases, I was able to start my talk to them by saying, I'm so glad to be in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I can tell you this, there's probably no city in the United States and maybe in the world that knows how to celebrate Veterans Day better than this city, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And they all kind of cheered. And then I said, I was in the airport yesterday and I ran across this guy in his Army uniform, and we started talking, and I asked him where he was going, and he told me that he was on his way home to see his wife and young daughter. And I said, that's what we're talking about here on Veterans Day. This kind of guy and hundreds and thousands like him that are willing to make sacrifices, be away from their young wife and young child for months at a time in order to serve our country. That's what Veterans Day is all about. And I'm so glad to be right here in this city on this day to help you celebrate. Well, I immediately had this audience in the palm of my hand because I had learned something about them. I had connected myself, told a little story about, and showed my appreciation for who they were, and that I cared enough about who they were that I was willing to take some time to think about it and mention it. So you need to know your audience, and then in the very beginning of your talk, just do something like that gets them on your side. So first of all, who are you speaking to? What kind of a group of people? Are you speaking to teenagers? There's something you could endear yourself to them with. Are you speaking to business people? And if so, what variety of business? Financial or medical or whatever their field might be. You can learn something about them to endear yourself to them. Are you speaking to a particular interest group? Are you speaking on a special occasion or a special day? And learn something about them and then use that as a part of your introduction. I can promise you, not only will it do great things for your audience in that it will win them over to you, but it will do great things for you, because when you make that effort to find out who your audience is and connect with them, their faces are going to light up. They're going to lean forward, take interest in what you have to say, and that's going to boost your confidence at that critical point of your public talk when you're just beginning and you may still have a little of those nerves and you're not sure how this is going to go. And all of a sudden, you've got smiles, you've got people leaning into you. That boosts your confidence. So the first step for preparation is to make sure you're preparing the right length of talk for the time that you've been given. And then, second, learn something about your audience so that you can connect with them immediately. And that's going to go a long way into making you a successful, no fear public speaker.